this begins my engine transport career. That's how I flew most of the time after that. And so I got in as co-pilot before co-pilot, and sent me to Manchester, New Hampshire. What's the chapter at Manchester, New Hampshire? And they said it was for engine transports. I got there, and they said, well, we don't have any airplanes. But he said, we have lots of them up at Prescott, Maine. And so they let me stay there about a week and have fun, and then I left my wife there because there's no place for her to stay up at Prescott. We had only thing we could get away with accommodations was a room with kitchen privileges. Mrs. Sims and her mother lived there, and she had another military man that had a room there, but they had he went out to eat most of the time, but we had a nice time with living there, and I had to leave her there when they sent me up to Prescott. So we started flying they had done. They'd gone full force into moving all the people out of Europe that had not been over in a lot of combat. They would fly them to the Azores from Europe. They had some of the C-54s there, flying them to the Azores, and we'd fly them from the Azores back to the States, to Prescott, and then after a month, they got the airplanes at Manchester, and I did get to make a couple trips out of Manchester before they dropped the bomb. And they dropped the bomb, and on a night, Sunday night, I believe it was, they made the announcement, and I didn't how much that would modify our demand for moving them out of Europe. Well, it stopped it. The next morning, I reported to work and said, "Get ready to leave at noon, and you're going to Okinawa." And so we went back and had to go through proper procedures to get my priority to get my wife take it back home. And so I got her out by noon, and I didn't get to take her to the airport, but the Sims took care of that. We took the aircraft from Manchester up to Prescott, and it had to meet all the requirements that they had, that what you bring with the aircraft. When you move an aircraft to move its basic place, you have certain things have to take along with it. So we got it all ready that next day. Got them ready, and then the following day we all started out to Hamilton Field. It's close to San Francisco, and we all waited up in Hamilton Field. And what are we going to do? And the whole thing was that all of C-54s worldwide, except for this very few certain places, they had going to the Eastern Pacific. They decided, well, they couldn't. It's been fighting in Okinawa. Some of the most terrible fighting of the wars in Okinawa. And but they decided to send us to Guam, and we went to Guam. And this was to move the troops into Japan. So we arrived at Guam, and of course, not much to do. We could go to the beach, or we could. It was better than what we had to follow this. We went within about 5 days. We sent us on to Okinawa. There we were in tents, and big tents. And there just wasn't much on any of the islands that makes life comfortable. And we used our mess kits to eat, and they cooked us like on combat situations. We didn't have to stand in line to shave, but it was a hard waiting time for us. It was worse in Okinawa than it was in Guam. But we stuck it out, and we waited, and on the 2nd of September then, and they had the battleship Missouri was in a port. They captured the port of Yokohama, and the battleship was there and had the committee, the Japanese and the American committee there. It's working on all the details. And MacArthur said we're not going to come in here until we have an agreement on exactly what we're going to do. And he really had details. And he finally reached the point. He says, "We've got all the major things done, and we're not going to hold up any longer because of these minor things. We're going to go in tomorrow, ready or not." And so, and I thought he was on the ship when he was in Manila, and he and I went into Japan the same day, because he moved in with the troops when the troops went, and that's when we went in. But on our second trip, we unloaded at Sugi the same way, except we cut both engines that time. They told cut both engines would be there a little bit longer. They didn't say why, but then they said, "We have prisoners." And I had a real good friend. Was one of those prisoners. I don't know what. I didn't have a chance to talk to him even just at all. They brought him up where we could see him. I talked to him just a little bit from the cockpit. But they were certainly have been abused, and they were in poor health conditions. But they were in there, and before we knew what happened, we were on the way back out of there with those prisoners. And so we took those back, and here again, before we got out of the airplane, they were gone. And we didn't talk to one of them. And that was the big thing for me. And we still didn't take a lot of time to load the prisoners and anything, and then they were people were really running, and doing everything they could to get them out. It's high priority, and I don't know. I'm assuming that most of these freshmen to us, we ended up in Hawaii at the hospital there, because they sure needed attention. And but that was our last trip as far as getting the troops into Japan. And the first day, they got up to the outskirts of Tokyo. That night after we unloaded, we stopped at this island, and it was pretty well equipped, better than we'd been in. And the only decent food they had is said on the island was the officers club. So we got some officers emblems and put them on our enlisted men. We all went to the officers club, and that was a big part that day. And then the next day we left and flew to Hawaii, and that was the end of that thing. But then the next day when I arrived in San Francisco was the big day. Is when I got word to my wife, and I think I had to spend one night there by myself, but only one night she was there, and we didn't know what's going to happen to us. We all C-54s and all the C-54 crews were all out in the Pacific and then in California, and but I was immediately told that I would be put in on if I was volunteered to stay at least a year, I'd be going on a schedule, starting a pretty big airline, a military airline. It's just amazing at the way how fast they cleaned up everything. And when the next I got to look what happened in Germany, they got all the ruins. Japan didn't have any ruins. They tore them all down and started building things new. And when MacArthur, he planned the occupation way before he ever invaded anybody, did any invasions almost, I think. But when he got time to think about it, he started thinking right what we're going to do with Japan. And MacArthur, he really within months, those Japanese were worshiping him. Yeah, it's unbelievable. His hours to work was at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. He comes to work at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. He works till midnight. That's his working hours. I don't know where that is. It's probably something that he's doing. He probably couldn't have gotten by. This is a place where he could set up his own rules. And he had his wife and baby. But anyway, so I said, well, let's see what happens. And the crowd's packed. When he comes to work, 4 o'clock in the afternoon, around 3:30, the crowd started gathering. And when he comes in, he marches in. Everybody's all under control. But there's this packed crowd every day when he comes to work. And I don't know how long that went on. We were just the novelties of all the things and how fast the things developed over there, and how so slow that we were developed in Germany when we got over there in the Berlin Airlift.